Welcome to the podcast. It's Monday. We're talking with Rod Mullins, who spent pretty much the entire weekend down in Bristol for the MLB Speedway Classic, which got rain delayed and pushed back, and they finally got it in on Sunday. And Rod, you spent the better part of both Saturday and Sunday at Bristol Motor Speedway. Just first impressions. What was it like?
Incredible. It was just unbelievable that you could have a baseball game in a race inside of a racetrack. That was probably the most impressive thing to me. It was impressive that both parties, the MLB and Speedway Motorsports, had worked together to bring this event to Bristol, Tennessee, and Bristol Motor Speedway. But it also opened up, I think, a lot of other questions too. We had the rain delay on Saturday, postponed it at least until Sunday. And it also put back on the front burner something that's been pushed to the back burner, and that has been the idea of having a dome over Bristol Motor Speedway, or at least some kind of retractable roof. And I told somebody with the racetrack the other day as they were taking me out back to the car and I was leaving them. They said, well, what was your impressions of it? And I said, well, this is going to throw it wide open to the wind for Marcus Smith and company to really seriously sit down and talk about this dome thing, because we're having too many rains. I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist or anything like that of cloud seeding or anything of that nature and so forth, but it's still very suspicious. It's always suspicious when you go to Bristol and Bristol gets delayed either by rain or snow or something like that that's happened. They probably could have played Saturday night. It would have been late, but they could have played on Saturday night because I was out of the track, outside the track, and really was at a standstill for traffic. That was a big problem that they had. And it quit raining. It was not raining there for about an hour, maybe a little bit longer. And some of the Reds players have commented on that, and they said that they felt like Major League Baseball could have done a better job of that and being able to call the game. And a lot of the fans got upset about things attending this game. And this wasn't your typical NASCAR fan. This was from a broader perspective with baseball. And one of the sad things that happened, they ran out of food on Saturday night with all the rain delay and so forth. And a lot of people went away mad. They were upset. We were reading things, sitting up there waiting for all this stuff to kind of take place. People were mad. They're afraid of road rage and things like that, trying to get out of the parking lot and so forth. But it comes with the territory of having a big event like this. You're going to have things are going to happen. And that's what exactly happened. But all in all, I was thrilled with it. I was just very happy to see baseball, to have a chance to watch some baseball. And it was in a great, great setting. You couldn't pick a better setting for a Major League Baseball game to be in, but inside, Bristol Motor Speedway.
I tell you, from the TV perspective, it looked like a major league ballpark. I mean, when you're watching a game, when the TV cameras were just focused inside the stadium, you didn't know you weren't watching a game from any other MLB stadium, 30 of those in the nation. They did a great job building a baseball field from absolute scratch. Um, and the touches, like the two home runs, Eli White with the two home runs. Having the car run around the track with the flag, the driver holding the flag out the car. Little touches like that. We talked about a lot of this last week. The uniforms, the hats with the NASCAR influence, with the numbers and everything else. Just an amazing job. And yeah, it's from the standpoint of the rain. I mean, you can't. Mother Nature's undefeated as far as that goes. Um, but it is just horrible luck. You've been covering NASCAR for us for the last several years. I can't think about how far back it has been now, 8, 9, 10 years. And Bristol is like sort of your home track, and it seems like there's a lot of these rain events at Bristol. You're right, both the spring and the fall races, and now the one baseball game we get
Mhm.
rain. Yeah, I can understand the idea of if there's a way and there is a way, the way is money to build a retractable dome or a dome over Bristol Motor Speedway. There's certainly incentive to do that because of all the rain they experience down there at these times of year.
Yeah, and it's at a strange time. Also, you got to understand too, and it's the same way I think. Also, when I've been up to Charlottesville, Waynesboro before, the weather plays weird inside the mountains, and especially down in the Tri Cities. It will. It's like the other night. We came to the racetrack on Thursday after the deluge that they had in Kingsport, which is nearby. Kingsport had 4+ inches of rain that dropped in an hour, caused a lot of flooding. Murray Cook got us there, and he told us, he said, well, we were fortunate here. We only got about an inch and a half, but the field held it. I mean, it took care of every bit of it. And that's another big thing that I want to throw a lot of kudos out to is Murray Cook and his MLB field staff. They were incredible during this entire event. And I know that they do this for a living. They go and they've got Major League Baseball people that handle the tarps and so forth like that for special events. They did a fantastic job of getting this field ready, even trying to play it on Saturday night that second time around. And then, they ended up, Major League Baseball put it on hold until Sunday. And we had decent weather on Sunday. We had the sun coming out a little bit. Didn't look too bad. The field looked absolutely just beautiful. I couldn't speak for seeing another field in that kind of shape. It was pristine. It just looked beautiful there, and I'm sure it looked that way on camera too, on television.
So how many people came back? I know, Saturday, the Fox folks on TV were talking about, yes, this was an MLB record crowd. It was at least over 85,000. I haven't seen a final number. How many people came back for Sunday, would you guess?
Well, the total number, they released it, and it's in the story that's in Augusta Free Press today, 91,000. And so it kind of jumped up six more thousand people within what they expected. Now, those that came back on Sunday, I would expect somewhere in the neighborhood, maybe under 40,000. And they took a big hit with this. And I'll tell you the reason why. You had a lot of people that had came down from Ohio. You had a lot of people that came from the Atlanta area and some different points in between. But I heard this with a lot of people from Ohio, especially. They had to be back to work, or they had to be back in there on Sunday because of certain things going on in their lives. And they had stayed down there from, say, Friday night, hoping to watch the game, but then had to pack up and go back on Saturday, even though the event had been postponed. There was a rider, as a matter of fact, with the Atlanta Voice. I got to meet him while I was down there. He had drove up from Atlanta that afternoon on Saturday, and he was really pulling that they would get this race in. And abruptly, about the time that we heard that it was going to be paused and postponed until Sunday, he packed his stuff up. He was mad. He packed his stuff up. He left, and we didn't see him back on Sunday afternoon. He said that he was not going to drive back in this kind of weather. He didn't have a place to stay, had not made arrangements. And I'm sure there were a lot of people that were kind of in that same boat. They hadn't made arrangements. They came down there just to see that game, hoping they'd make their way on back home after that. So some of them had to stay, and some of them had to make arrangements to stay. And that was a little bit of the situation, I think. That was a lot of it. I think there were people that had stuff to do that couldn't get it done any other way except for going back on Sunday.
Well, and if you had planned to go back after the game,
Yeah,
all of a sudden there's 91,000 people theoretically who have to find hotels
exactly.
somewhere in the vicinity. That's not easy either.
No, it's
Um,
not.
so one question our colleague Scott German asked me several times, Rod, so I'll throw it to you if you have any insight. The teams. Now, I'm sure they came down because the game was on Friday. The Friday game in the series was early in the afternoon. They then made the trip down, I'm sure, Friday evening, Friday night.
Mhm.
They wouldn't have necessarily planned to stay Saturday night. They were, I'm sure, if the game had played as scheduled, the way Major League Baseball does things, their teams, the two teams are going to be playing somewhere else on Monday. They had Sunday off on the schedule, but they were, they have new series starting today or tomorrow. So what about them? Was there any talk about what they had to do Saturday night to stay in town?
Well, from what I understand, the Reds had planned on staying in town anyway, because they, from what I had been told, were going to catch a jet out of Tri Cities Airport and they were going to fly on into Chicago on Sunday. So that was the plan. Atlanta, I don't know what their plans had been, but Atlanta in one way had a little bit more of a shorter trip than Cincinnati did, and I don't know who Atlanta was playing set up to play today. But they were going to play the Cubs. The Reds were going to play the Cubs on Monday as we speak. And so that had to come into consideration. I know that they stayed at the Hard Rock Cafe
Okay.
there at the hotel, and everything is where they stayed at. But that's what I'd heard about the Reds, that they were going to fly out. And fortunately, with this being a built-in day, it gave them a little bit of some time to be able to kind of play around with if they had to. But the one thing that I noticed about it, Chris, and I don't know if you've seen it, you probably have seen it when you've gone to Nats games and so forth. The quick pace of a baseball game. What used to be a pitcher taking forever up there on the mound and so forth, now is timed just about like a shot clock in basketball or a play clock in football, and it sped the game up. And I liked it. That was the first time I've ever experienced it, but I thought it's putting some pressure on some people. And here's another one for you: the Reds, the way that this game played out, where they had originally planned to play on Saturday night, they had to burn through a bunch of relievers in order to be able to get through this game, to make it possible for the starting pitcher, who was supposed to be Shane Hunt, I think, was or something like that, but he was supposed to be the starting pitcher for the Reds, and to give him a chance at rotation starting next week when they come back into it. So yeah, it was tough right there. And the Braves ended up doing much of the same thing as well. They burned through some relievers, but they got in some situations that at least they were smart enough to play their way out of.
Yeah, well, the Fox broadcast, they talked about that on Sunday. The Reds, both teams petitioned MLB to be able to get an extra pitcher on the roster,
Right.
to get an extra roster spot for pitchers because of what happened Saturday night. And so the Reds had sent a pitcher down during the day on Saturday, sent him down to AAA. He was
Mm-hmm.
actually, the guy was in the car halfway to Louisville and got the call, come back. We need
Yeah,
you
and they put him on the plane. They
and he
put him
put
on
him on a
the plane
plane. Yep,
and
they had
flew
him
him down
stop
there. So,
wherever he was. He flew on Commissioner Rob Manfred's plane, and then the Braves didn't quite get the same accommodation of a plane being given to them, but they called up a pitcher from AAA Gwinnett, which is in the Atlanta suburbs, and uh, and so the guy who got the win yesterday, actually for Atlanta, was the guy called up from Triple, and he drove in the middle of the night,
yeah.
and got there Sunday morning. I did look. Atlanta they're at home tonight with the Milwaukee Brewers in town. So, it would be a 300-mile trip, so about an hour on the plane. That's nothing for them. They were able to, I'm sure, get back into Atlanta last night and do things as they would normally do. So, yeah, good on the part of MLB to give them the scheduled off day on Sunday just as buffer. This game was so important for everybody involved. I mean, the Braves and the Reds, yes. MLB, NASCAR, Bristol Motor Speedway, they had to do whatever they could do to get this game played. It was heartbreaking Saturday night that, it just I was texting you, Rod, during the game, during the rain delay, I should say. What's it look like? And of course, I'm looking at the weather. I'm looking at our apps here, and it just did not look good. It was like I say, heartbreaking because it was there's so much work went into this for years.
Mhm.
And then have rain, play around with it. At least they got the game in on Sunday, but man, I'm sure there was so many people sitting on, pins and needles Saturday during the day and then Saturday night. Can we please just get a lift in these clouds and get some baseball played?
Well, they were, and there were fans that that got there, and a lot of fans put, I think, unwarranted blame on Bristol Motor Speedway about some stuff with Speedway Motorsports. I don't think it was justified. I think that was the first thing I saw on social media. Somebody got mad, and somebody had said something about, oh, they ran out of food. That's Bristol Motor Speedway's fault. And then I said, no. And they were like, what do you mean? It wasn't Bristol Motor Speedway's fault. And I told them, I said, this was MLB contracted. They had to come in here and they offered the food. What we got, people in the media got $20 in little voucher coupons, is
Yeah.
what we got.
Yeah.
And instead of going to one of the Levy brand sites that's around the racetrack, I went to the MLB site. So, one, I got my first introduction into those coupons. Second, I realized that Major League Baseball is totally cashless. They don't use anything else except for if you can pay by your phone or the card. That's the only way they'll take it. They don't want to fool with cash. And I can understand that because everything is so fast paced. But that was going on. There were so many people that said this is Bristol's fault and so forth. They had an overrun on some of the parking. I talked with one of the deputy sheriffs of Sullivan County Sheriff's Department, and one of the people that was hauling me around for the media shuttle, he told me, he said they'd opened up a portion of the parking that they normally did not open up for because of the race and everything. Everybody else is pretty much out there and they have their place and where they're supposed to. I ended up being out in Lot E, which is on the dragway part, and they have to go and bring you in. And there were people, gosh, it was a traffic jam. It was a log jam for at least a good hour or so after they had paused the game. And I'm sitting in the car and I'm just like, I'm not going anywhere. So I decided I was going to take a nap, and I slept for probably about an hour and a half. And then I was able to leave after that. Didn't have any problem, but it comes with the territory, something like this.
Yeah, one thing that folks who are listening in wouldn't necessarily know, when we do our jobs, after the game is over, whatever game you're covering, for me, it's usually just football and basketball. Everybody leaves. The game's over, you leave. We
Mm-hmm.
stay for like an hour, hour and a half after, and we do interviews and maybe even write our story before we leave. And by the time we leave, there ain't nobody there, so we get to sail right out. Well, when you got to leave, like you tried to the other night,
Right.
that's terrible, man. I don't like that.
Well, it was different for me, and here's some other things I'm going to throw out there to you. This Everything looked on the camera so pristine and perfect. It looked good, and I got up. I'm just going to put it to you this way: the press box. When I was told that I was in the press box, I kind of had a moment of my mouth dropped open. I was like, I'm going to be in the press box. I'm going to be up above the baseball action. And Anthony Vestal said, yeah, we've got you on the list over here. So I was in the middle row up there on 3 rows on media row up there up there in the press box. But folks, this wasn't a solid built press box. This was like Tinker Toys. I'm just going to put it to you this way: it was put together, and you see the joints and everything where they put all this stuff together. Then the big question is, where are you going to use the bathroom? So you have to go back down a set of steps, 70, I think, in all, going back down one way, and then having to come back up. And, you're like, where do you go to the bathroom at? And they said, oh, right out here. Walked outside the press box, and right there is a porta potty setting 3 stories up. And when you sit in the thing or you have to go in there and stuff, you're wondering, is this thing going to fall? Is this thing going to collapse? Is this thing going to rupture and then spread all this junk all over everybody down at the infield? It was kind of scary at that point, and it didn't bother me about the press box as much until I was getting ready to leave yesterday evening, and then there was kind of a sway going on, and they had already started taking apart everything at the end of the game yesterday, and it was kind of freaky. That was really freaky.
That is interesting. Yeah, you don't think I saw a few on the TV coverage, a few shots of like the wider shots that they gave. Well, press box. Was that area like sort of down the third baseline a little bit, like
I
above.
was over to the left of John Smoltz and the other guy calling the game on Fox. So they were on the end and they were looking directly at home plate. And
Okay,
then
okay,
on
okay.
down through there, it kind of wound around a little bit more. You had Rob Manfred in some of them. Fox has a very big um, control room that they have to maintain up there, and so they had stuff that they were taking out yesterday afternoon. But Rob Manfred was there. There were a lot of other dignitaries that was there Saturday night. I don't know if some of them came back on Sunday. I know Rob Manfred was there, but we only had just a few celebrities or former players. We saw Chipper Jones, we saw Johnny Bench. They made the presentation, or at least the introduction of the big trophy that they gave for that particular for the race and or the game. And so, it was we got to see a lot of people. There were a lot of people coming in there. We were mixed in with just so many different media outlets, and you had your locals there, and your locals had some good positions there in the press box. And I can't thank MLB enough for at least going by what Speedway Motorsports had done and saying, hey, here's a spot. And I was right in the smack dab middle of row two there on press row. And it was amazing. I had a view that was just I can't begin to describe it. I felt bad for the people that were up in the cheap seats at the very top of Bristol Motor Speedway, but it was the thrill of being there. That's what it was.
Yeah, it's I've had that kind of experience with NCAA events I've covered. The Final Four for the first game, Zach Peerless was with me. Zach is now, I think, with CBS Sports. He was interning with us that year, 5 years ago, 6 years ago now. We were behind one of the baskets, which was on the floor, and there were people who were up in the upper decks there. So we were on the floor. And then for the second game, the championship game, I was right behind Jim Nance. So kind of like you, right down from John Smoltz. It's nice, yeah, that they treat the local media the way they do because I mean, I was afraid for you, Rod, that you'd be walking around out there in the rain on Saturday. So glad
Well,
you weren't.
I had a couple of friends that personal messaged me on Facebook and told me, said, "Well, at least we know who's dry and who's wet now and everything from this whole thing because they had been sitting out in the rain." And I kind of felt bad about it, but hey, when the job allows you to sit undercover and you're protected, I'm not going to complain about it. I was just happy to be there. So.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting you talked about $20 in food vouchers. They've only been doing this in recent years. It used to be there'd be like a media set up like a luncheon or dinner or whatever. And but lately the ACC tournaments, the NCAA basketball tournament has been doing this thing with the vouchers.
Mhm.
Um, and now $20 is cheap, man. We get 30 for ACC and NCAA tournament, so $20 you got to be like conscious there because you still have to pay, like, so to speak, with your voucher. You still got to pay those concession stand prices. Were you able to get like a full meal out of the $20?
Yeah, I did. I
Wow.
got even though it was a hot dog, Cincinnati chili on it. That's what I like.
Yeah.
I got that. Of course, I had to pay extra for the pop. The soda was $5. I think anything soda was like $5. Beer was a little bit more than that, I believe. But it was the food was pretty good too. I was really happy with the Cincinnati chili. I didn't get a chance to try the Tennessee egg rolls, though. They were talking about the Tennessee egg rolls just about all weekend, and I didn't get a chance to try one out, but I at least know the recipe now. So I might try that. My wife and I might try to fix that one night and see if it really is as good as they say it is. But the Cincinnati chili, the first thing when it hit my mouth, and then I took the whiff of it and I smelled cinnamon. And that's what Cincinnati chili has in it. It's just so unique in and of itself.
Yeah, my two trips to the College World Series in Omaha made me. So the second year, one of the media, no, they still do media meals at the College World Series, so that's awesome. And they had Omaha steaks, hot dogs, one of the meals, and it was like at first I'm like hot dogs. I mean, you usually give you whatever else, and I ate one of those hot dogs. It was the best hot dog I ever had in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so ever since then, I came back home. and said to my wife Crystal, we have to start getting these Omaha Steaks hot dogs. And so now we get Omaha Steaks. We actually we get those. They freeze dry, deliver them to you. The steaks, their hamburgers, and their hot dogs. And I always have in my downstairs basement because of the College World Series. I've got Omaha Steak stuff in my. So it pays off. Sometimes if you could find out who made your Cincinnati chili there and have them delivered to your house, you know, there's
Well,
worse
hey,
things.
you can find it in the store down here.
Okay.
Skyline Chili. That's what they
Okay.
call it.
Well,
And you can go and get it. It's like in a little plastic tub, and you can get it usually from the in the frozen section, at least at the local store down here. But the first time I ever had it was probably, oh gosh, 20, 25 years ago. And they said it was an experience. And my wife loved it so much, she got a recipe for it. And then, of all things, my mom fell in love with it too. She said, I've always heard about this chili. And yeah, she had to make some up too as well. So it makes for a great memory too.
I forget that you're much closer to Ohio than certainly you're 5 hours closer to Ohio than I am. So you would be in that realm. Um, so game yesterday, it was a well played game. I mean, we won't have to talk much about the baseball part of it, but I mean, it was a game that you're a Reds fan. The Reds needed that game. The Reds are in the playoff. The Braves not so much. The Braves have had a tough season with injuries and everything else, but when Ellie De La Cruz got up there in the ninth inning with 2-1 and nobody out, I'm starting to think to myself, I'm like, this is NASCAR. Let's get a photo finish at the checkered flag or something here, and a three run. And the guy who was hitting before, I forget who it was, just missed hitting a 2-run game tying homer.
Mhm.
So I mean. It was frustrating, I'm sure, for Reds fans, but I mean, for baseball fans, it was an exciting finish at least.
Well, the game on Saturday night when it started out, and we only had a quarter of an inning played because of the rain and so forth. But the Reds had already made a move. I mean, they, had gone into this and they had, hey, Ely De La Cruz had just, he'd taken off. I mean, they had some hitting. And then it was like when they paused it and they said, we're postponing it, moving it till Sunday and everything. It was like the Reds that had started out on Saturday night didn't come back on Sunday. That's the way it kind of struck me. There was not enough offense, or at least the opportunity to capitalize with that offense and be able to capitalize on some plays. And Dela Cruz made a miscue that he really shouldn't have been doing. But I think the Braves played him for that. They got him off base, and when that ball was hit, they got him in the squeeze play, and then boom, they got him out and so forth.
Yeah, that was early in the game.
That
That
was early in the
definitely was
game.
momentum changer
Yeah,
because he got tagged out at the plate in a rundown.
yeah,
Now Austin Riley, the Braves third baseman who made the tag, ended up having to leave the game. He's on the injured list now
yeah.
because of the
Mhm.
diving tag he made landed weird on his shoulder. But yeah, that was a momentum changer because the Reds still had 10 hits in the game. They just couldn't get the big hit.
Yeah.
Um, the as far as that goes. And I was thinking something there related to the craziness of Saturday night. I mean, they were, the pouring down rain. The Reds were running all over the place. Um, good experience overall, it seems. What is the sense of, I know Bristol Motor Speedway had folks from the NHL there. What I read was that they're also working with WWE. They'd love to host
Mhm.
a WrestleMania or a SummerSlam there in the future. I mean, yeah, the rain dampens things a bit, but I mean, they showcased that they could pull off a big event like this in a short period of time. I mean, are those things a possibility for down the road?
Yeah, I think so. And Bristol Motor Speedway is going to have to, as I call it, diversify themselves a little bit more. We're in this situation now where we're switching tracks. You have tracks losing dates and so forth. Richmond, of course, is only going to have one date this year, and that's coming up here not this week, but the next week following that. But Bristol has to remain significant in the process. And I think as long as you have a Bristol, I don't think they're going to take away both dates, one in the spring and one in the fall, especially with the playoffs. But in between there, what can you do to be able to ensure you've got a mega complex in the Hard Rock down there and stuff that can house some people, and you've got some other hotels and motels that are starting to spring up down there. Why not bring a WWE situation there? Bring a wrestling contest in there. I even said at one point that I thought that it would even be great if they brought in, of all things, a college bowl game. It would cause some problems, though, especially in the holidays because of Speedway and Lights, unless they made some kind of change to it to where that was a part of the tour. I don't know what they could figure out with that, but I think a college bowl game would be really good. Maybe even the start of a college football season, much like what they did at the Battle of Bristol. I think they could do that. But the only big thing that concerns me, if they put a roof over it, they're perfect with everything else except for the racing. Now, how you going to ventilate? How you going to get all that fumes and everything out of there? That's going to be the big thing. And I was told by someone down there Saturday that it's a matter of how many kind of air, I guess, air purifiers or whatever they've got that can pull all this bad air out and filter it out to the outside, or you build a dome with so much of a gap to where air can still go out, but you still have to have those pumps to kind of get it to go all the way out instead of lingering over the track. There's just a lot of ifs and questions about it right now that we don't know the answers to. But Marcus Smith has said, if there's a will, there's a way. And I think of all things too, Jerry Caldwell is also figuring into that as well. They've got to do something that's going to attract more people. They may even be able to host some conventions or some kind of big thing there and stuff where they need 150 or 160 some thousand people. They could do something like that.
Yeah, I'm thinking that SoFi Stadium out in LA that was built and opened like in 2020 or 2021. It's a closed. It's got a roof, but there's also open capacity. There's openings to it as well. So
Right.
yeah, and there's engineers that can figure this stuff out. And you've got a venue that can hold 150,000 people. You've got to use it more than twice a year.
Yeah.
If you can, and that NHL event that they do, every holiday season where they do an outside game, man,
Yeah.
that'd be perfect. WWE just had SummerSlam this past weekend. They were at MetLife Stadium in the New York area. I mean, they had 60,000 people each night for a two-night event. They could break all kinds of records there at Bristol if they had wrestling down there, the WWE wrestling. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that they could do. But yeah, they've got to come up with a solution to that rain that just seems to vex them every time they try to do anything down
Hear
there.
this dog in the background. I mean, this dog. I'm sitting somewhere else this afternoon, and this dog is just like crazy. It's my son's dog, and
He
anyway,
seems to want to weigh in. Yeah, I
yeah,
don't.
I was wanting to weigh in about some things.
Got
So
some thoughts here, no doubt. So now it sounds like you had a great weekend, great experience. A lot to report on, and just we won't even talk much NASCAR. William Byron won the race this weekend. We're a little closer to the playoffs. We'll talk more about that as we kind of let you compress because you you spent 2 days covering one baseball game.
yeah, yeah,
So
it's been one of those things of just where it's been a tough one. It kind of wore on me, especially with knees, especially up those steps.
oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that was rough. It's not too bad when you're coming down the tunnel and you're walking. You don't have steps, but you've got the incline going into the racetrack. But gosh, those steps are, and it taught me too. I'm going to have to pace myself. I'm not as young as I used to be, and I'm not as physically active like I used to be or should be. And so that made a big difference. And so it's got me kind of straightened out a little bit now. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for all the hard work this weekend, and we'll get back on track with NASCAR next week. But in the meantime, get some rest,
all
get your
right.
brain working on that, get some brain rest as well, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thanks, Chris.